What you're about to watch is an interview with Jonathan Wiseman. In this interview, we talk about how he developed the competence, skills, plans, and funds for going from a personal trainer to a freelance personal trainer, all the way to opening his own gym. His clients have stuck with him. He's bringing in over $1 million in revenue, doing incredible work, and has lost a huge amount of weight himself, showing that what he teaches is not just something that he teaches, but also something that he does himself. John, awesome to meet you. I've been doing a little bit of research on your page, and one, it looks like you're creating some awesome results, but
Yeah,
also that you've been through a little bit of everything, business wise, personally, training wise. So I'm very excited to hear more about that.
awesome.
Where is it that you're from?
Uh, Toronto. So this is in Canada. Yeah, so this is where I live and this is where my business is as well.
And before you started your gym, what was you or what were you working with?
So I started my gym about almost 11 years ago, 2014, and before then I was a personal trainer. I started off working for like one of the big commercial gyms in Canada, which is called Good Life. Started there when I was like 22 years old and worked there for about 4.5 years, and then eventually went on and started to freelance for about a year and a half, where I would go to a gym that rents out space to trainers, and I would use their space for about a year and a half and saved up money to the point where I could go ahead and launch my own gym, which was always the goal since I started at Good Life.
Okay, so even from, because that was what was I was gonna ask, yeah. That was the goal from when you became a personal trainer, or
Yeah, I think I had a vision in my head of what I wanted as far as like the type of facility that I would want to train in and what kind of facility I would want people to train in. And um, that was the goal the whole time. And it was always in the back of my head. And I was always trying to think of ways to get there. And yeah, it was the dream, and the dream's been accomplished. So it's nice.
I mean, that's really, really cool, I think.
Yeah.
How do you have any idea how you were able to have such a goal and vision at such an early stage?
Yeah, I think I, before I became a personal trainer, when I was like 8 years old, I was enrolled in martial arts. And so since like a young age, I was constantly kind of working on almost like self development on a physical and mental kind of aspect. And I really, really appreciated the whole process around putting in effort and seeing an ROI getting better, right? And I think that evolved. Eventually my mom took me to Good Life when I was a kid at 14 years old and got me a membership there. So I started to go and work out on my own, and I kind of fell in love with it. And so I kind of like knew that this is what I wanted to do at a very early age. And it kind of evolved from there. And, at the age of 21, 22, I was ready to get started, and make this a career for myself. So I think I got very lucky in the sense that I knew what I wanted really, really early on, which allowed me to start early and put in the time early to develop the skills I needed to get to where I am now. Obviously, people, or a lot of people, don't get that lucky to find that passion right away. Um, but yeah, I think I just happened to get exposed to something that I fell in love with really, really early on, and I think that's kind of helped guide me as to knowing what I wanted before I even got started.
That's so incredible, man.
Yeah.
Like to have that experience. That makes me super curious. Did you have people around you who had any kind of similar experience or who you talked about these aspirations with?
Not really. No, I think beginning into this process of becoming a coach, becoming a personal trainer, I think a lot of that came from more so some of the challenges I faced early on in my life, more than it did from influences of people around me, right? The majority of people I was hanging out with at that time, all these young guys, all they're doing is, going out to the bars, getting drunk, and, you know, or some of them were going to university, but no one was really business mindset focused. They weren't chasing growth, they weren't chasing a goal, and they definitely weren't chasing health, right? So it was definitely a solo kind of experience for myself, but I'm very introverted by nature, so I tend to do well, one, under pressure, and two, by myself. And while there's benefits there, there's obviously drawbacks as well. I always say to people that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with people, right? So I was able to achieve my goal quickly, but now in order to go further, I have to have the proper team, right? And but no, I wouldn't say there were many influences. Those influences started to kind of take shape once I started to chase education. So once I became a personal trainer, very early on, I was exposed to some really, really high quality educational courses and certification programs by like top strength coaches like Charles Poliquin, for example. And I was lucky enough to travel the world learning from people like him. And so with that said, I was exposed to other coaches all around the world, from Australia to Hong Kong to Singapore to the Dominican Republic, like literally all over the place. And these coaches, some of them were the most successful coaches out there, still are, and they've achieved amazing things with their own businesses. And so that was kind of, to a degree, a bit of an influence, but I wasn't. It's not like I got to spend every day with these people, right? It would be like you'd see them once every 6 months at a course, and otherwise you communicate with them like on the internet. But I would say the majority of this was just like whatever conversations were generally happening inside of my own head.
I see, I see. And so from the time you've done these about 4 years of PT for was it Good Life,
Mm-hmm.
and a year and a half on your own, like at what point do you reach the decision or the conclusion that now is the right time for me to commit and go on my own, or like start my own gym?
I think, like, I was just doing the math, of what or how many hours I was training at Good Life and how many clients I had and how much money those clients were paying to train with me. And then I did the math of what would I take home if I wasn't working for Good Life and these clients continued on with me. And so the math made sense, right? And it's not like I left Good Life because I didn't see a future there, but I think just a few small little things occurred a little bit too consistently that kind of led me to believe that my ability to grow within the business was going to be held back. It wasn't a priority for them. So growth for me is super important. And so I figured if I'm not going to be able to grow here, I have to grow somewhere else. So I did the math. I looked at locations and areas that were within traveling distance from my clientele. And, I did this very, very, in my opinion, as respectfully as I possibly could. Like I brought my fitness manager at the time out for lunch, took them to a really nice sushi restaurant, sat down with them and pretty much explained to them where I'm at mentally, what my goals are. And I pretty much told them, listen, this is what I'm going to do. And I've got so-and-so clients who have like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months worth of training sessions booked with me still remaining. And I would appreciate it if you allowed me to stay here and finish those sessions off. And they were nice enough to allow me to do that. And so once I was able to finish those sessions off and I moved on, I made sure that I didn't solicit these clients, but they knew where I was going. And if they wanted to come find me, they would, and they did. And I would say pretty much every single one of them came, tracked me down, and continued to train with me. And this was in 2011, 2012, or 2012, and I'm still training all of them to this day. You know what I mean? Like, I think it just goes to show, the relationships and the importance of those relationships that you build with people in business for longevity purposes. You got to really not just focus on driving results and giving a great quality service, but you also have to build a really important and really strong relationship with people, right? People will buy from people they like. So Um, leaving good life after 4.5 years and then moving on to do my own thing was really it was really driven by you know an understanding that if I wanted to reach my goals, unfortunately, I wasn't going to be able to achieve those working there. And in order to do that, I had to throw myself into the fire. And so I decided to do that. I was young, right? So now's the time, right? If I wanted to truly achieve my goals, now's the time to take the risk. Like my mom always used to say, um, in your 20s is the time to bleed. Work until you bleed. That's what she used to say, because your body and mind can handle it. And it's in your 30s and your 40s that you start to establish your family, your career, and your financial security. But it's in your 20s that you take those risks and you put in the hours. Because if you spend 10 years, 20 to 30, developing your skill and your craft, then by the time you're in your 30s and your 40s, you get to charge so much more for that skill set that you don't have to give 40 to 60 hours a week to it, right? When you have a family and you're trying to build wealth, if you're just trading time for money, you're not going to build wealth, right? You need to be able to leverage certain things like your network, your time, your skill set at that point. So a lot of people need to spend, especially young people, need to spend those 20s um, digging really, really deep roots into the skills that they want to develop. So that way, when the time comes, they can charge appropriate for those skills instead of trying to start developing those skills at 30. Not 3 years down the line, you've got kids, and not that there's a disadvantage to having kids, but you don't have the same amount of time to put into that development.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But it sounds like, and I'm just gonna try and rephrase it from my perspective to make it even easier for anyone who's going to be watching. That what you say to me is that one, you knew what the vision was.
Yeah,
Two, you already had this instilled mindset of this is the time where I am going to take the chance. So even if it doesn't work,
yeah,
it's a lesson, right?
yeah,
Or I will build a foundation.
yeah,
And thirdly, and I think that's quite important as well, like there was a concrete map supporting your decision for being able to continue in this way.
exactly. Yeah, I've never taken steps forward in my business and my growth without calculating the risk and calculating the reward. And for me, the reward always has to be greater than the risk. And I have to have a bridge that gets me from point A to point B that I know I can cross. I'm not going to just jump and hope for the best. I have to know that, okay, I can cross from point A to point B, and yes, a lot can go wrong. But luckily for me, I have supreme confidence in myself, and I know that I'll keep going until I achieve my goal, no matter what. So, having that sense of self belief, I think, is a very powerful tool for any business owner. If you doubt yourself, your chances of success, I think, are probably close to zero.
I think that's actually such a great point. I'm really happy you mentioned that. Do you have either any ideas or any beliefs for how someone gets to the point where they can kind of attain that self-belief or that certainty
Yeah.
in themselves? Do you think it's just a matter of commitment, or do you think it comes from some sort of competence?
I think it's like three things. I think number one, it's it's being exposed to challenges early on in your life, because when you get through hard times, you realize the power that you have as an individual and your adaptability and your perseverance. And it builds confidence because like you're overcoming challenges, right? And that's kind of like the same thing as setting goals and achieving them. You're setting a challenging goal and then you're overcoming the adversity to get there, right? Whether it's learning something or achieving something, whatever it is. So I think confidence and self-belief comes from achieving and setting goals and overcoming obstacles and actually accomplishing those goals. And the same thing goes for like if you have challenges in your life, hard times, the goal is to overcome those and continue forward, right? And so essentially that pain and that struggle builds a very strong foundation that becomes very hard to break. And so when other things become challenging in your life, they don't seem as challenging, right? Because you've gone through way worse. Secondly, I think having a good upbringing was really helpful to me. I had a very supportive mother and father who really loved me and really instilled a sense of self-belief and confidence in myself, even with the challenges I had to face. And from the age of like 14 on, both my parents struggled with cancer. So like at the age of 14, pretty much both of my parents were constantly in and out of hospitals, and there were many, many times where I was at home alone, having to fend for myself, pretty much until I moved out. And so, my teenage years, I kind of like raised myself to a degree with my sister. And so, while they did such a great job in raising me, I think partly of what they did to raise me was I got to see how strong they were when they faced challenging times as well, right? So I kind of learned from their actions and learned some really important lessons. And then I would say like the third thing of like having that sense of self-belief and confidence and what kind of helps people get to that point and that or how to develop that is um, again, I always say to people, I'm like, pick something and chew like hell. They always say like, don't bite off more than you can chew. I'm like, I don't believe that. I think you should bite and you should chew until you're done chewing. And so if you're going to choose something, choose it and then give everything you have to it. And listen, at the end of the day, even if it's not the absolute perfect thing for you, there's so much skill to learn and develop in that experience. Don't stop until you've achieved and become the best at it. And even if that's 10 years, you will become one of the best. You truly will. And there's a high level of confidence in that too, knowing how long I've been doing this and how hard I work at it and my passion and love for growth and learning. I know that I've got that in spades in comparison to a lot of my competitors out there. So, I know the time I put in, I know the energy I spend on it. And I think it comes down to how you live your life, how you think, and how you treat yourself. A lot of people treat themselves poorly. They don't talk to themselves positively. They have a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of limiting beliefs. And you really got to break those down and overcome those. And that's hard work. And a lot of people don't even realize that that's what's going on inside of their heads. And, it's hard to move forward when you're the one person who's supposed to be rooting for you the most is the one who's holding you back, right?
Mm, yeah, so beautifully spoken. I 100% agree. And I'm really happy you mentioned this might be a 10-year thing,
Mm-hmm.
because at least in my position and with the people I see around me, and the whole like startup has become sexy, or entrepreneurship has become sexy.
Yeah.
For so many people, it's a matter of making it now. Like, I start now, I make it now.
Yeah.
Like, it should be that fast, right? And I mean, I had that belief as well, and that actually held me back from starting, like from even getting started for
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And so realizing that, like, it's just a matter of getting started, failing, repeating over and over and over and over. That makes it so simple, and makes it much more approachable.
Yeah. And it's like chase the failure because there's lessons in that you can only learn through failing, right? If you
Yeah.
walked into it and immediately succeed, then you, one, are the luckiest person on earth, but two, also the unluckiest person because once shit hits the fan, it's going to break and you're going to lose it all. And so it's like called failing upwards, right? It's like you want to fail upwards because each failure brings you one step closer to that win. And when you finally achieve that win, it's because you deserve it. And also you're going to have the skills to keep it.
Yeah. It's the all the skills you get from investing or building yourself, save from inflation, right?
100%. 100%. Totally
So
agree.
it sounds pretty much like, from the time you then opened up your own gym, I mean, that's gotta have had some kind of overhead costs. But you're saying that almost immediately from what I hear, most of the people you had been working out with before came and just started at the new spot?
Yeah, so when I left Good Life, I found a space to rent. And this is not my spot. This was another gym that rents to trainers. I did that for a year and a half. So I
Okay.
found a spot and I went there for about, I think, like 3 or 6 months. And I brought clientele over there, for, like my clients, right? And I trained them there and I paid a fee to use the space. Obviously, I was able to take a lot more home, which was nice. And then here's failure number one. I brought one of the trainers who I also trained as a client from Good Life over, and they left Good Life to come work for me 3 months in. So I think it was too early for me to make that commitment to that person. I did not have the skills or the knowledge in how to get them busy. I knew how to get myself busy because my clients just came with me, right? But to find people that I don't know to train with that client or that coach was quite challenging. And for 6 months, I couldn't get them one client. And I'm so lucky that that person just believed in me wholeheartedly because they ate dirt for 6 months, right? Um, and eventually I spent like, I would literally not go to bed until like 2 or 4 a.m., 7 days a week for a full year because I was spending so much time researching um, advertising, marketing, social media, paid ads because Facebook ads just started then and it was a new thing. So I was trying it out. I was trying to refine my approach on how to get a hold of people on the phone, book them in for assessments, sign them up. I wasn't very good at sales, so I had to figure out how to do that. But eventually, I figured it out, and eventually, I was able to fill that coach up to the point where they were, doing 40 hours a week, and they were really happy. And then at that point, we found another space to rent that was way nicer, just down the street. Brought everyone over there. I brought in another client of mine who was also a coach, and then developed them up. And then I kept doing that. And before you knew it, I had 4 people working under me, all like completely full, completely busy. So we had enough clients at the time, and we were paying enough in rent because you pay per client. So the amount I was paying in rent was so much. I was like, I could literally just go ahead and open my own space, and I'd be able to pay for the rent with what we're paying already. And we have enough clients that we can just transfer them over. So I did that. I found a spot close to where I lived, 15 minutes walk. It was an empty shell, and I went ahead and I signed a lease, brought all of our clients and coaches over there, and began the process of what it is now. And of course, there was about a 3 month process. Well, there's more like a 3 month process of finding the space. Then there was a 3 month process of building it. And then once it was built, we transferred over. And then of course there was a whole host of problems there because it's a learning experience and you don't know what you don't know, but then you find out pretty quickly and then you figure out how to solve it, right?
Yeah, and I think this is a great testament to the calculated risk. Again, like
Yeah.
you keep going to a new step that's new, and like you so beautifully described that you max out that step and then you move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so once you moved into that new spot, you mentioned like some of these challenges that you kind of learned by doing, right?
Yeah.
What were some of those?
So before we go into the challenges, I just kind of want to I want to add like kind of like a quick phrase to like what you just said, that, popped up in my head. I remember someone told me that, um, think of yourself as like a monkey swinging from the trees, right? The monkey doesn't let go of the first branch that they're holding onto before they have a grasp of the second, right? So
Mm,
people, I think, let go of the first branch too early and they fall to their death. So, you know, if you're swinging, make sure that you have a good grasp of the second branch before you let go of the first one. It's the same thing I tell people. I'm like, don't quit your job before you have another one set up, or don't quit your job before your business is making enough that it can pay for the loss of what you're making from your job. So people can start a business even while holding on to a full-time career. If it's a 9 to 5, then your business is from 5 to 9, you know? and just really focus on that, and don't let go before your hand is ready to hold on to the second step. So that's kind of always been my process. I've never let go before I know that my feet have somewhat of a stable ground. Um, some of the
That's
challenges,
that's
yeah,
actually such a great saying. I think
yeah,
I'll definitely grab that and steal that from you as well.
awesome, yeah, more than welcome to. So, with regards to some of the challenges, like challenge number one, um, we opened up in an area that wasn't necessarily the nicest part of the city. And, I did that somewhat deliberately. I've always, been of the mindset that, find where the people live that make the most money, and then just cross the train tracks. So it's still close enough for them to get there, but it's on the other side. So it's where perhaps the amount you would spend on rent is lower than it would be if it was on the right side, right? So I did that, and I did that to too high of a degree. And I didn't know the area very well, but we've been there for 10, 11 years now, and I've built a very successful business in probably one of the worst parts of the city. So, to me, that is also a confidence booster because it's a testament to what I'm capable of. And, I can only imagine what I would do if I was in one of the most high end parts of the city as well. But, am I interested in paying 10 times the rent? Not really. Now, with that said, that was challenge number one that we had to overcome. Challenge number two, we open up, and the air conditioning, the HVAC wasn't working, and it was the middle of the summer, and it was super hot. So clients are coming in, and they're going, "Where's the air?" And we're coming from a beautiful space that we were renting to this, and there was no freaking airflow. So that was a headache, and I had to figure out how to do that. I had to get our HVAC reset and reinstalled. I didn't like that was like such a huge investment right out of the gates that I had to deal with, because we in the negotiations with the landlord, I didn't take that into consideration because I didn't know any better, right? And so it was on us to maintain or fix the issue, which was quite annoying. And to be honest, like I think immoral on the landlord's part. It's almost like they knew what we were walking into, and they didn't tell us about it. But you live and you learn, right? Now, another problem was the tenants that were on the main floor. It was a bar, and they didn't use their ventilation system when they were cooking. So a lot of smells and smoke would come up onto the second floor. We didn't know about that like ahead of time, and we found out when we're in the middle of a workout. All of a sudden, it gets smoky upstairs, and it smells like meat. And of course, clients don't like that. So there was a whole process of having to, you know, build a relationship with the downstairs tenants and explain to them, why this is a problem, and help them understand it, and build that network and that relationship, that sense of trust, and get them to use their ventilation system. Their ventilation system was broken, so they had to go through the landlord, get it fixed, all this stuff. But eventually everything was resolved, right? And, that was probably 3 months of just nonsense that I had to deal with, over and over and over again. And the list goes on and on and on. But hey, listen, like, because I know all this stuff and I've gone through so much over the last 10 years, you know, whenever I'm ready to sign another lease somewhere, I know what to do. I know what to negotiate. I know what to look for in a lease. I know how to talk to the landlord. I know how to talk to the other tenants. I know how to build those relationships and nurture them so that way we all win, right?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure. That's, the whole benefit or the goal you get from going through that. You
exactly.
mentioned, and I think this is where, or something I would like to extract from this interview is that you mentioned dealing with something like the HVAC not
Yeah,
working and the AC not working. And I think it's quite easy to just say that you get forced to deal with it
hmm,
because that's what happens.
yep,
But as time has gone by, do you think that you've reached some sort of specific process that you follow when you get into a situation where shit kind of hits the fan and you have to do something,
yeah.
so you don't like panic or you don't freeze up, or like what's that look like to you?
I call them SOPs. So standard operating procedures. So, you know, what I say is every time a problem arises within a business, if it happens 3 times, it needs to be systemized. So from there, you start to create standards of operating processes or procedures where you're going over what the objective is and what are the step-by-step things that yourself or someone on your team has to learn and do and implement on a daily basis to make sure that these systems run smoothly, so that way these problems don't continue to occur. And you want to make sure that in the objective, people understand the why. So the reason of this SOP, and why is it there? What problems does it solve? And how does it benefit the business? How does it benefit clients? How does it benefit the staff, right? And so that way, when you're onboarding new staff, you can train them up, and you can train them up quickly, and they can always relay and rely back onto those SOPs. So that way they're standards, and also that way the expectations are set, so that way there's no confusion. And having these standards or SOPs allow me to, whenever a problem comes up, I can refer to those. I can go, okay, well, this problem, this is the SOP that resolves it. Have someone do it. And to be honest, I don't deal with a lot of the problems anymore because I've got staff, I've got team now. So and they're trained up on these SOPs. So that way I don't even hear about the problems, right? So the problems, when they arise, it's usually due to a miscalculation on my part within, perhaps what direction the business wants to head, or where do we want to put our money and effort into for the year to focus on growth. And does it pan out? Not always, right? But that's part of business. So I think, as a seasoned business owner, you learn that being a business owner, it's pretty much putting up the fire constantly. There's always little fires that show up everywhere, little cracks in the ship, little leaks, and you're just constantly figuring out ways to patch them. But eventually, if the same leak keeps popping up, you have to create a system, and you have to resolve that issue so it doesn't keep popping up. And after 10 years, you should have, hopefully systemized everything. And even then, those systems need to evolve because technology evolves, the times and the culture of the people you're dealing with evolves, and so those systems have to as well. But I think the more systems you have, the less panicked you are when shit hits the fan, per se, because you have something to rely back on. You have a foundation with answers. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. That makes me. It was a great explanation as well. So it for sure makes sense. I'm kind of curious though, because I think someone might listen to this and go, okay, I'll try and automate or systemize everything, right?
Yeah.
And do you think you can go too far? Like, do you think you can try and put up too many steps in your SOPs to the point where you kind of cripple yourself because of all these things you then have to try and go through? Or is that just really overthinking, or what do you think?
Well, the SOP should be detailed but simple. So the SOP should be like, it gives you 20% of an image of what the system should look like. It's the onboarding process and the educational process that the person in the leadership or management position teaches to the staff that fills in the 80%, which is the rest of the details, right? So they go, okay, step one, it's just a line, and it goes, what this means is, and then you teach that person, right? So they're not there to be overwhelming. They're there to be reassuring, right? And they're there to help communicate the message of what this role or what this task is meant to be. So that way there's less confusion between yourself and someone else that works for you. And of course, if you want to scale your business, you have a booklet you can use to teach management to help you manage the business. But can it be crippling? I think a lot of people do overanalyze, right? And as we know, like, analysis paralysis. If you overanalyze, you're going to paralyze your execution, right? But the thing is like, the types of people that tend to go into their own businesses should be the types of people that execute, and they don't chase perfection. They chase action, they chase speed. Because the more times you execute, the more times you fail. The more times you fail, the more times you learn. And eventually you've got a strong understanding, right? But if all you do is think about the process and don't actually execute, you're not really a business owner. You're just someone with ideas, right? So yeah, you can definitely paralyze yourself with detail, but standard operating procedures, you should have them for everything, like literally everything. I have standard operating procedures of how we stock our bathrooms. I have standard operating procedures of how the space should be cleaned. I have standard operating procedures of how we open and close the gym. I have standard operating procedures of how we design our marketing. I have standard
Mm.
operating procedures of how we speak to clients, right? Because I want things to be done a certain way. And in order for that vision that I have for the business to be understood by people who work for me, I need those standard operating procedures, especially if the goal is to eventually grow, right? So, yes, there's analysis paralysis, but I think having systems and standard operating procedures actually take away from that anxiety and that panic because you get to rely on them, so you're not constantly always having to think.
Mm.
Oh no, it's like the people that don't have those are the ones that panic and overthink because they have to keep it all in their head. So they're always trying to remember it. But once you get on the paper and it's organized, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You get to put that energy into growth. You get to put that energy into innovation and into being creative and finding new ways to push the business forward, right?
Yeah, I think that nicely ties back to you saying that it should be a reassuring thing,
Yeah.
like that you don't have to do all the thinking. You just know where to act.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So once you, and I really, honestly, you talking about onboarding and all of this to me is really exciting, but I want to keep this a little more low level and initially focused.
Mhm.
So you spend a lot of time clearly learning about marketing, client acquisition.
Yeah.
What were some of the first and most important things you started learning and implementing for filling up your first and following coaches?
So the first thing that I had to learn to do was how to create the types of images that would catch someone's eye. Step one, right? Step two, I had to learn how to create sales copy for the ad. So when people read it, it was very clear. There was a hook, there was a message, and people understood what they were getting because you don't want just a bunch of random clicks. You want qualified clicks. You want people who are most likely interested in what you're selling, right? Then from there, you have to have systems in place for like back then we used a lot of like landing pages and funnels. You don't really need to do that anymore because a lot of the social media platforms have their own. But back then you had to create your own funnels and landing pages and websites where people would click on an ad, they'd fill out the form, it would take them to a landing page, and then it would explain the services, and then they'd sign up, blah, blah, blah. And then that lead would come to you. Then you'd have to contact that person and then take them through a sales process and book them in for an assessment, sign them up. So on the marketing side, I understood the importance of images. I understood the importance of visuals. I understood the importance of sales copy, and I've always kept it simple. But one thing that I didn't understand back then that I'm starting to learn more now is branding. Branding is a very powerful thing that I think should never be ignored. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs right now and a lot of business owners right now who are smart and forward thinking are now putting more emphasis into the brand, their personal brand, than they are anything else. Because no one can sell something like the business owner can, right? We are the most passionate person about what we are selling. No one can even come close. You can't replicate it. So if my brand is strong and people see my brand and they learn more about me and they relate to me, they like me, they create an emotional relatability online, and then eventually they see some of the businesses I have, those people are more likely to choose those businesses for whatever they are looking for than they would to go to someone else's business who they don't know who owns it, right? If they don't know that person, they have no relatability to it, and they know me, they trust me, they like me, they're more likely to choose my option than that option. So branding is super important right now, and that's kind of my focus for the next couple of years is to really build my brand. I've really just started but I'm going to go hard into it. I'm talking like I'm committed for 5 years straight of just grinding to build it up. And I understand that it's going to start slow, but it will grow over time. And I want to be the presence that, when I say something, people are going to listen and they're going to take action on it, right? Um, but with the initial stages of what I had to learn, it was like really the beginning stages of what paid ads are now, and they've definitely changed over time. And I think eventually like what happened was I learned on my own. I did it on my own until I was able to afford to have someone else do it for me. And definitely once I was able to afford to have someone else do it, I had them do it because I'm going to be honest, I did not enjoy doing it. And speaking of automation, if you're able to hire other people and delegate work that they're going to do more efficiently and more effectively, and it's going to bring you a greater ROI, then you 100% should spend that money doing that, right? If you're going to not do that and you're just going to hold on to that money yourself and maybe lose out on a 10x ROI and only get a 2x, that's not good business, right? So I think one of the things that I learned from that experience was delegation and finding people who can do things better and more effectively than I can, and then paying them to do it, and then offsetting the cost of paying them by making sure I'm getting an ROI through that. And that comes down to the sales process and learning how to get in touch with people, learning how to talk to them, learning how to get people understanding the value of your business and your services, and getting them booked in for assessments, getting them excited, getting them showing up, which is hard. You can generate leads, but speaking to them is a challenge, and then getting them to actually show up to an appointment is even harder. And then the sale is usually the hardest part, right? Luckily for me, the sale is the easiest part of it all because I've developed this process so well over the last 10 years that like if I'm in front of someone and I'm going through this process and the sales process I've developed, I'm almost 100% certain I've got them, right? For me, the biggest challenge is always being taking the leads that we generate and converting them into the consultation, getting in touch with enough people. And that's why there's so many of these businesses out there right now that are digital that are saying, hey, listen, we can do appointment setting for you, right? Because appointment setting is a challenge that a lot of business owners face. And so having people in place or having systems in place within your business that bridge the gap between generating leads and getting them in front of you, that is a very valuable step. And if you can create a system that does that wisely and does that really, really effectively, you're going to absolutely annihilate it. But if you struggle there, then you have to figure it out and you have to find someone who can do it for you, or you got to do it yourself in the beginning, or you've got to, hire an agency, whatever it is. But like, doesn't matter how many leads you generate if you can't sign them up.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm kind of curious because I think people have, certain expectations going into wanting to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
For you, how long? Obviously, you told me it was about 6 months before you started filling up your first coaches spots.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any idea, like how much did you have to spend on paid ads, or how many, failed calls did you do, or failed bookings or leads? Do you have
Yeah.
any sort of idea of numbers?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I did in the beginning. I'll tell you what we do now. Okay. So in the beginning, when paid ads again were brand new, I could spend $15 in a day and get 60 leads. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's not the same anymore, right?
No.
And these were generally qualified people, too, qualified leads. This was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And so I'd have more leads than I could possibly deal with. And at this point, I was still living downtown in the city. This was before we even had the gym. I would literally, anytime I wasn't training a client, I'd be on the phone calling these people. And so if I was walking to the subway station, I was on the phone. If I was on a subway station, or if I was on the subway where there were service, I was on the phone. If I was walking from the subway station to the gym, I was on the phone. If I was sitting down waiting for a client, I was on the phone. If I was on my way home, I was on the phone. When I was walking my dog, I was on the phone. I was always trying to contact people. And because of that, I got a lot of people signed up very quickly. We were doing like 16 consults a week. We were doing like probably 12 signups or 14 signups a week. It was nuts. And so I was filling people up quick. I was able to fill my coaches up very quickly once I figured that out. And then as time has gone, you have to pay more and more and more for the same leads, but also the quality of the leads have diminished because, Facebook isn't the meta right now. It's TikTok and other platforms. So while Facebook's still great and Instagram's still great, you get a lot more unqualified leads now. You really have to pay a lot more for them as well. I'm talking like probably 10 times more. And it's hard to get in touch with these people because no one wants to speak on the phone anymore. So you got to grind harder. You got to figure out new solutions. You got to direct message them. You've got to text them. You got to create workflows and campaigns and use service. You have to use like Salesforce or Go High Level and just like create different like ways of communicating with these people, and just like it's a nonstop grind. And that's so like if I was spending $15 a day back then, I'm probably spending $100 now, right? But with that said, and yeah, even with that, like we're generating 1/10 of the volume, but still, I mean, we're generating more than enough leads to succeed, right? Luckily for us, our ads hit well. But, again, going back to the brand, I do believe that while paid ads are incredibly effective, if your systems of communicating and getting in touch with these people very, very effective, and that your sales process is strong, I think they should definitely be a staple within generating business for anyone today. But I think, again, going back to it, a business owner should develop a personal brand. I think long term that's going to be more beneficial than any paid marketing could ever be. You do that and life will become a lot easier for you when it comes to generating business, especially very affluent business, right? Very, very high net worth types of individuals who you want paying you money. You want to be the person that people want to go to, and then you want to have services and businesses that you can serve these people with, right? Because like you can have a strong brand, but if you don't have anything to sell them and you can't monetize it, then it's meh. You have an audience, so that's it. But if you have an audience and you can monetize that audience because you have strong businesses that you've worked years on building, oh man, you're gonna kill it. So if I was to give any advice to anyone, it's paid ads are really, really important for sure. But I would say on your own end, you cannot ignore the importance of building your personal brand. Not anymore, especially with AI and everything coming out in the next little while. What's going to separate businesses aren't going to be, it's going to be who you are. That's what's going to be the differentiator. Everyone else will be able to copy everything with AI at a high level. So the only thing that's going to really differentiate us is us.
Yeah, that's it'll be interesting to see once it like really, really kicks in. I mean, obviously we're still in the transitioning phase. I know you. I saw that you previously lost a lot of weight, and I was very curious to kind of understand for you, was there any correlation between wanting to lose weight because of business success, or the other way around, like because you lost weight to wanting to do better in business, or how did that journey like play out for you?
Yeah, so when I first opened the gym, and obviously when I first started my career in personal training, I was in great shape, right? And then owning a business and having some personal challenges with sick parents and just like, the challenges of figuring out, and grinding on business aspects and trying to learn. Like I was literally like spending 16 to 18 hours a day on business, to the point where I was like putting all my health and all my working out and everything on the back end because I was hyper focused. And that became quite problematic because eventually those habits and behaviors I had that were good started to kind of like break down over time. And then, a lot of stressful stuff happened all at the same time. And then of course occurred, all that garbage. A lot of us faced challenges during that time. And during that time, I put on a lot of weight. And I think while I was able to still successfully grow a personal training brand and business. And I was still able to successfully manage a team and lead. Um, I was definitely holding myself back because of that, right? So I think being able to, transform myself over the last year and get back to where I used to be, um, has been profound for the business, for the people who work for me, and for the clients to watch me go through that process using the systems and using the methods that we train them on, and them seeing it work so well. Um, so I am my brand. I am my product, right? I am proof of it. And I think that is a very powerful tool I'm going to have moving forward, and not just elevating my personal brand, but elevating the brand of the business, saying, hey, I've gone through what you guys have gone through, and look what I was able to achieve. This is something that we can help you with, right? So I think that's going to be a really cool tool to use as far as marketing goes. Um, and I think I gained that weight because of the challenges that came with the stress of running a business, for sure. But I also lost the weight because of the understanding of the importance of the leader leading. And if I want my business to do what I want it to do, I can't just tell people I have to take action and do it. And I have to be the person who leads the charge, because it starts from the bottom, it trickles down, right? So the leader is at the top. And how the leader lives, how the leader acts, kind of feeds into the staff, and then the staff take on those traits and it feeds into the clients and the customers, and then the clients and the customers take on those traits and it feeds into their lives, and that's really what we're trying to achieve, right? So I one of the biggest reasons why I decided to lose the weight is because I wanted to start to build my personal brand, and I knew I'd be a lot more confident in doing so if I was healthy. But on a personal level, and in an even more important level, I've got two young boys, and they look up to their dad. And it's important to me that, one, I am around for as long as I possibly can be for them. So my health has to be a priority. But two, I want to show them what it is to be a strong man. And in order to do that, I've got to live by example. And so I went on this transformation journey mainly to show them, what it is to face adversity, what it is to overcome it. And so I'm much happier because of it. I am much more confident because of it. I'm much stronger mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And it has positively impacted every aspect of my life, from my relationship with my wife, again, my kids, my networking capabilities, my relationships, my business, my mental health. It's been awesome. So, I would always say to people, anyone who is running a business, prioritize your health, prioritize your mindset, prioritize everything that has to do with, your well-being, because we think we don't have time, but we do. We're just not prioritizing that time. And I can assure you that if you are taking care of your health, not only are you going to have more energy to do what you need to do, you're going to be able to do it more effectively. You're going to be able to do it more confidently. You're going to be able to put yourself out there. You're going to be able to take advantage of more opportunities. You will be a significantly more successful leader. You will be a significantly more successful business owner. It's when you allow it to take over and you lose yourself. You can't lead that way, and you will eventually break and burn out, and your business will suffer. So, I think that's an important message that people, especially 5 years in, need to remember and they need to realize for sure.
That's really incredible. And I mean, I don't think we put a number on, but it's something like 106 pounds or something, right? That you lost.
Well over 100 pounds of fat loss to date,
Yeah,
and continuing. So I
that's
feel
so
great.
awesome.
I'm confident now in where I'm going to be in 20 to 40 years. Whereas a year ago, I was like, it's not going too well. At any any moment, I could drop dead, and I didn't want
Yeah.
that. But again, I've
No,
got
of course
I
not.
want, I want to be there for them. So yeah,
Yeah. Congrats, man. That's really such a great example of leading by example. So
feels good.
yeah, and you once you get to that point, like I think confidence wise, certainty wise, you just become so much more able also to rely on yourself, because you don't need any kind of recognition or validation from anyone else, because
Of
you
course.
literally are making the examples, right? You
100%.
don't need other people to tell you you're doing well. You can see that you're doing well.
Exactly.
And that's really, really cool. I think one of the final things I would like to touch on is, you've already shared incredible things. What, in your eyes, is the number one piece of advice you can give to someone who's like, I want to start a business today, and I don't mind succeeding in 5 or 10 years, but what should I put all my energy into?
Are we talking like industry? Or are we talking about
Industry?
what?
No, just like for you, what would be the absolute most important thing to focus on if someone wants to start a business? They might not even know where to start, but like for you, what's like the make or break things?
So beyond figuring out what kind of business and what to do within that business, because I don't know. I don't know. I can't say like, figure it out, figure out what you want to do, and then figure out how to do it. Like, I think that's something that other people have to figure out for themselves, right?
Mm,
But I think once you have that idea, once you know what the problem is you want to solve for people, you have to then come up with the service or the product that you're trying to sell. And you have to really refine it over time. And that takes customers, and that takes practice, and it takes listening to the people that you're serving, taking their feedback, right? Because if your clients can tell you what they want and you can refine it to be exactly that, you're winning. So really formulating what your offer is and really refining it and creating a strong, powerful offer that you can market and advertise is really, really important. And then from there, learning how to market and advertise so you can generate customers and clients and leads. And that comes through branding, marketing, social media, networking, learning how to do cold outbound, hot outbound, learning how to do SEO or search intent SEO or YouTube, whatever it is, all of them, maximize that and, develop your skills and develop your ability to get out there and get your product out there and get your service out there. So that way more eyeballs can see it and more people can take advantage of the great things you've put out there for people, right? Then from there, you want to make sure that you develop a process that streamlines the sale, right? So the lead is generated, the lead is communicated with, there's a connection, and there's a purchase, and then the service is provided. So you want to be able to create a system that allows you to do that very, very effectively and very, very efficiently. Then from there, I think last but not least, branding. You need to brand yourself. Really, really strongly, especially if you're a small business owner. I'm not like if you're the CEO of Pepsi, you don't really need to be branding yourself because the company's going to brand you, you know. But if it's a small business where you're competing against tens of thousands of other small businesses, especially if it's digital and it's online and it's millions of other competitors, you need to be very strong brand because um, if there's a million different versions of what your business is online for people to access, again, they're going to choose the person they like, right? So, step one, figure out what your offer is, refine it. Step two, learn how to market it and generate leads, and then make sales. Step three, your brand. Build it so that way everything becomes a lot easier to achieve long term. And when you have a strong brand, you will get opportunities knocking on your door that you never thought you'd get. That could lead to other opportunities with businesses or collaborations, or who knows, possibly other business ventures or possible investors long term, right? If someone watches your stuff and they go, wow, this person's really fired up, very locked in. I vibe with this person. I think they get it. I really want to, see this person succeed. You know what? I've got $20 million in the bank. I love this person's space and ideas. I'm going to reach out to them. Maybe we can do something together in Dubai. You never know. But they'll never know that you exist if you don't have a brand. So like a personal brand. So I think those three stages are really, really key.
And for the people who might be super skeptical, right, and the most critical, who are thinking, why should I listen to this guy and this other young guy who doesn't know what he's talking about? Like, for can you share a little bit about how many clients that you are servicing by now and what kind of revenue that you're generating?
Yeah, so we have so our gym is a 2,100 square foot space. It's a small but high end personal training facility. So we train mainly semi private clientele, which means it's personal training but in a semi private environment. So like groups of 3 to 4 people per coach. And with that, we have about 156 clients right now, with about an 85% show up rate, which means 15% of those clients are generally always on hold, whether it's traveling or illness or work related issues, whatever it is. So I would say on average, it's about 132 people that are consistently paying us, right? And our model is clients pay us on a weekly payment system. So, we have 90% of our clients paying week to week, but like within a term. So if they've got like a 12-month term, they're paying 52 payments, right, over a year. And then about 10% of our clients will pay in full, which is nice, right? Because that brings a lot of cash into the bank. But of that, I would say we're generating just about 1.4 million per year, which again, for our location, I think where we're located, yeah, I'm not lying when I say it's definitely not the nicest part of the city, but it's gotten a lot better, and it's close to everyone. It's close to people, and it's really getting nicer. It's just, I think, based off of what I know other gyms do that are similar, not just in Canada but also in the United States, we're doing double what they do. A lot of businesses like on a high end, like mine, are doing 750 to 800 grand a year. So I think we've achieved, a pretty high level of success, and our profit rates are around 25%. So that's after taxes, after all fixed and variable costs are taken into consideration. So I'll allow the listeners to extrapolate the math on their own when it comes to, how well we're doing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope that eliminates any sort of doubt or skepticism the listener might have had and finally decide to commit to just getting started.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Where can people go and find and see more about you and your coming brand?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram, or you can find me on Instagram at Call Me Coach John. You can also find my business at OBF Gyms, so OBF Gyms on Instagram as well. And from there, you'll be able to find all of our other social media platforms through that. And yeah, I mean, if you've watched this video and you liked any of the stuff we kind of talked about, say hi on Instagram, and I'll be happy to, have a quick little conversation with you all. And I appreciate your time, David. This was fun.
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm so happy that you're also keen to share a little bit about your insights.
Of course, bud.
More than happy to stay in touch. I for sure know at least that I have things I can learn.